Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And I am joined by a SiftPop crew to talk about as of literally right now, the last feature-length film from Wes Anderson in my series until about a month from now, a month and a half from now, where I got another one, just almost perfectly in time. But let's go around the horn. We got Rowan.
Hello, I forgot that this was video as well, so I wouldn't have been fooling around with my background had I remembered that.
It just makes it more interesting that
Yeah,
way.
exactly. Interesting.
And next up, we have Heath
Hi.
and we have Robert.
Hello.
Boo. Sorry.
And that's the round the horn, and I'm Shane. And for those who haven't tuned into the show before, we have three segments. We have our coming attractions for the week of it's going to be April 18th. Oh my God, it's already halfway through April already. And then we're going to be talking about Asteroid City. And then we have some recommendations for you. So basically, this weekend has a couple of wide releases. But really, the big one coming out is Sinners from Ryan Coogler. We do have remake The Wedding Banquet and a few interesting films coming out on limited releases like The Ugly Stepsister, Shrouds from Cronenberg, and The Legend of Ochi from A24. And if this is your bag, we also have Pride and Prejudice getting re-released for its 20th anniversary because god damn it, it's 20 years old. Uh, and just you wait, we'll have Revenge of the Sith soon too to also remind us that it's been 20 years since something has come up too. But let's go with Rowan. What movie were you most interested in?
I am very interested in most of the movies that are being released this weekend,
It's a
but
good weekend.
You have to
mm,
choose.
I
Such a political
and
answer.
and I've already chosen, wouldn't you believe it, Robert? I there is no movie, honestly, this like during this whole movie season up until
That
Life of
you
Chuck
relate to
that I
more.
am more excited for.
Oh.
Let me speak. Than Ryan Coogler's Sinners, which has been described by some as his magnum opus and described by others as a brilliant vampire horror movie. And both of those just sound like the coolest thing in the world to me. Not just that he's reteaming with Michael B. Jordan, who's pulling double duty playing two characters in this, but also it's shot with IMAX cameras. It's the only movie this year coming out this year that was shot with IMAX cameras, which is insane. And I love that stories like this are being afforded that kind of technology to be showcased. Um, I think it's fair to say we haven't had a good Ryan Coogler movie in a while, or at least a very good Ryan Coogler movie in a while. And I'm just so excited to see him do not only an original story unburdened by any sort of IP, which it's been a long time, like, even longer since he's done one of those, um, but also like a movie that like looks good. There are some other movies, like there's a movie being released this weekend called Sneaks, that looks like just total, just like total dog water. And so as stuff like that is getting released, it's just so refreshing to see a movie that looks legitimately fantastic, and that is, according to those who have seen it so far, also fantastic. With like a really incredible cast and like a budget behind it that proves the confidence in it. Yeah, so I am very, very excited for Sinners. I'm seeing it on Thursday, and I cannot wait.
This is also the one that I'm most excited about. From the second I heard that Ryan Coogler was making a vampire film that was influenced by anime, in many ways, I was super excited about that idea. And there's a couple other side reasons. One, Rowan's getting a little feisty over here with talking about Sinners and you know, and Sneaks over here. At least we're talking about it.
Catching strays for
And
no reason.
and
Have you
then
seen the trailer, Robert? It looks so bad. Like, I don't know how movies like that keep getting greenlit when auteurs like David Lynch, who have proven their worth to the industry for decades are not getting anything financed. Like it's kind of insane that like
Well, he's
I
dead,
think
Rowan.
there's a
well no
reason David
no
Lynch
okay
is not getting
okay
financed right now.
I saw
before
that
this
coming a
January
mile away.
before this January. Um it's just like I think very indicative of the state of the industry that movies like Sneaks that are about talking sneakers, like going on adventures that just look like they have absolutely no soul, are getting like tens of millions of dollars thrown their way. While people who, again, have proven their worth, like David Lynch, who is, of course, no longer with us, um, as Robert so eloquently pointed out, he was working trying to get stuff at Netflix done for years, and they weren't like allowing any of this stuff to move forward. And it's just like, what are we even doing here if we're not elevating the voices that have proven themselves to be great storytellers? We might as well just make an animated movie about like talking shoes. Um,
I would just
and
like to state that the talking shoes do have souls because they're
Do they?
shoes.
Is that confirmed?
Oh,
Okay. God damn it. I hate you.
I
Okay.
was the only one
I'm
that got that
sorry.
immediately.
I was having trouble keeping a
Jesus.
straight face because I'm like, I'm gonna
I
throw that joke
immediately
out
threw my
there.
head
Yeah.
back, and Rowan
Yeah.
took you seriously.
That was good. That was good. That was good. I'm gonna mute
Oh
myself and
my.
continue eating my
But
Cheez-Its
no,
now.
but yes,
it's
I
about
am
time.
very excited about Sinners. It has amazing cast. I am slightly wondering, was Michael B. Jordan supposed to be playing two characters originally? Or did somebody's career going off the rails might have opened up a spot for somebody to be playing his brother?
Who would that be?
Um,
Can I ask, like, I've seen that sentiment going around a lot. Is there like any particular evidence going for it, or is it just people are thinking that would have been a good Jonathan Majors part?
Whoa, whoa,
uh,
whoa, whoa, whoa. What? Who? Tell me more about this man.
Rowan, get
well,
out
no,
of here.
I just thought that was interesting because like him and Michael B. Jordan have been doing a lot of work together.
Yeah,
And but I'm excited to see Michael B. Jordan playing double duty. Huge Haley Steinfeld fan. And like this has a whole entire and fantastic cast, and especially if we're never going to get that Blade movie,
I know.
because Marvel's incompetence, at least we're going to get Sinners. And at least they found a couple of IMAX cameras that weren't hoarded by Christopher Nolan for the Odyssey.
Christopher Nolan and James Cameron have them all.
It's just like, what happened to the IMAX cameras?
Uh-huh.
Just off in the corner. James Cameron and Christopher Nolan just chilling with hordes of them. But no, this looks like a really exciting film, and I have a press screening for this in 2 days. So
I've
I
never
am
been
super
more
excited.
envious of you, by the way. I would not murder someone, but I would do very bad things to see this movie early.
Mr. I live
Rowan,
in
the lines you're
LA.
slinging out so far tonight
I
are
know.
just
What is going on,
crushing
man?
me.
This is a whole new
I
Rowan.
got nothing to lose.
This is LA Rowan. What did
Yeah,
LA do to Rowan?
a bad boy now.
Just look at that haircut.
Yeah, haircut. I haven't gotten a haircut since January.
Rowan and I are
You gonna grow the
competing with
man
who can
bun?
grow a better mullet. So there we go. Heath and Robert, are you both
Hmm.
excited for Sinners as well?
Sure. Yeah. Uh, all the reasons that you guys have said, I'm looking forward to Sinners. I don't really have much else to add. I just like big time movies doing big time things from big time filmmakers and actors. So, looks like Sinners is gonna is gonna fulfill that. I just see Rowan eating his Cheez-Its.
Sorry, am I distracting you, Robert?
Yes.
Sorry to hear
Go
that.
ahead, Heath.
It's my dinner time. You gonna tell me not to eat?
I am absolutely looking forward to this movie. It wasn't my pick. We'll get to mine in a second, but it wasn't my pick because I knew someone else would pick this. Otherwise, this
Yeah.
actually is my most anticipated for the week, um, and a lot of it is because, and if I could tangent just slightly, I feel like this has been a really weak year for movies so far. Not that I
Yes.
expect like a lot of bangers, in that first trimester of the year, January through March, but even relative to the last several years, this has been weak. I would say genuinely, there's like one, maybe two great films that have come out so far. One of them is Black Bag, and then another one is one I'm going to recommend at the end of the episode. Outside of that, maybe Warfare, depending on your interpretation of it. Even that's rubbing some people the wrong way. But it's been most of the reviews I've given out this year have not been great, but Sinners looks like it could be the first truly great film that we're like, oh, 2025 is cooking. Like Coogler's back. He's not stuck with the House of Mouse doing MCU stuff. He's allowed to be original. He's partnering with Michael B. Jordan again, and he's getting to flex his muscles because he's playing two roles. And like you look at the trailer and the cinematography, the action that's in it, it's already getting immaculate reviews. It's got a perfect 100 on Rotten Tomatoes as of us recording this. It's got like an 83 or 85 on Metacritic, which that's even more impressive to me than the Rotten Tomatoes score. I mean, so I'm stoked. I'm expecting greatness. I'm expecting vintage Coogler in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, the other film that you both chose is The Wedding Banquet. So,
Yes.
Robert, would you like to go first on why you're most excited for this one?
Sure. First of all, I did choose it because Sinners was already taken times two. And then when someone else also doubled down on it, I said, you know what? I'm just going to double down on it because I have been looking forward to this. I've never
Yes.
seen the original Wedding Banquet. I might check it out. Probably won't have time. But this one on its own, like even if I didn't know it was a remake, I'd be completely into it just based on the trailer. Um, as I've said 1,000 times, I'm a connoisseur of 3-star and above rom-coms, and this looks like it's easily going to clear that bar. Uh, I just love the premise of gay people pretending to be straight to not upset the people in their culture who might have a problem with their sexuality. And I'm sure it's going to have like a wholesome message by the end because, of course, why wouldn't it? Just based on what this movie is going to be. Bowen Yang, Kelly Marie Tran, Joan Chen. I don't know who Han Ji Chan is, but I know those three. And Lily Gladstone should be one-time Oscar winner, and
Yep.
she's honestly the biggest reason I'm looking forward to this, just to see her in something else. She was in something last year I didn't end up watching, but this obviously isn't the same level of Killers of a Flower Moon, but like just something where she has a prominent role where more eyes are going to see it than like a small Apple TV movie that she was in. So yeah, I'm just really looking forward to this. It should be a really good time. It's 103 minutes. It's what you're looking for in a movie like this. I can't wait.
How about you, Heath?
Yeah. Copy paste. Really, the original. As an aside, if you're gonna remake something, this is when you do it. The original film has been out for over 30 years now. That's more than a generation, and it was already a fairly small movie when it came out. A lot of people aren't even going to know this is a remake. You can modernize
Yeah.
it for contemporary culture, and not just contemporary culture, but contemporary understanding of the LGBTQ plus community, because that has definitely shifted since the early 90s and what was and was not considered taboo or appropriate, yada yada, or respectful, more importantly than anything. And yeah, I love this cast, this quadrilogy of leads, this four-stooled prong. Uh, I love all of them. Also, Joan Chen is here, who I thought was great last year in Dee Dee, and I'm excited to see her again. So, and the trailer looked
Josie
really
Packard.
funny. What?
Sorry, I was just shouting out Twin Peaks. Go ahead.
Oh, and the trailer looked really funny, and yeah, I'm down for it. It looks like a fun time. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm legitimately excited about this one too. This cast just looks fantastic. And this is the kind of thing, it's like, this is the kind of movie a cast can really carry.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if they just let them do their thing, I'm very excited to see them have a lot of fun on screen with this one. Rowan, was this one on your radar?
Definitely. It premiered at Sundance, I think. And I heard very good things about it there. It's directed, I believe, by Andrew Ahn, who did
Oh,
Fire
Fire Island,
Island,
which
Which
was
was
which
excellent.
great.
which was
Yeah.
Mhm.
which was really like refreshing, I think, in terms of the rom-com scene. I haven't seen the original. I might check it out before this releases, but I'm very excited. It seems great. I echo what everyone else has said so far.
We also, real quick, if I could shout out more fully Kelly Marie Tran,
You may not.
who really hasn't been in much since
Star
Star
Wars.
Wars,
Yeah.
and she voiced Ryan the Last Dragon. But like just to see her, just along with Lily Gladstone, any problems with Star Wars are not her fault whatsoever, and I think
Agreed.
that's very clear. And she looks really charming and really fun in the trailer for this movie. So I'm just looking forward to seeing her. Just no baggage, no Star Wars, no Rose sucks, no blah blah blah. Just like see her in a movie.
I
Yep,
believe
I
she was
agree.
just in a psychological horror movie on Hulu called Control Freak, which I have not
Yes.
seen, but I heard okay things about it. I assume
She
you saw
was
it, Mr. Wasteland.
she was more than okay in it. The
Yeah,
movie itself was, I thought it was interesting enough.
yeah.
But if we haven't said enough interesting and potentially igniting things already today, no, it was not her fault at all. If you want to find out whose fault it was with all that vitriol about Star Wars, those who made it look in the mirror because it was the fans' fault. Because people just can't be happy, and Star Wars fans need to just take a step back and enjoy some things sometimes.
Yep.
Because there we go. That's
Looking
not
at you, Rowan.
controversial. Well, this has been fun so far. This was already a very interesting show, and we haven't even made it out of coming attractions. But this is the point in the show where I read some background and over the past month read the insane amount of people that have appeared in said Wes Anderson movie. So let's give some background here for Asteroid City, which released in 2023. This is written by Wes Anderson. The story included Roman Coppola, who came up with the story with Wes Anderson, and starring, we'll be back in 10 minutes. We got Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody, Lieb Schreiber, Hope Davis, Stephen Park, Rupert Friend, Maya Hawke, Steve Carell, Matt Dillon, Hong Chow, Willem Dafoe, Margot Robbie, Tony Revolori, Jake Ryan, and oh yes, Jeff Goldblum as an alien. So there we go.
And
And
actually, so many more people than that still. But those are the big
well,
names.
yes, still a lot more people, but I picked the vast majority of the most famous ones to keep this manageable. So there we go. And then this had a budget of $25 million and did have a box office around $54 million worldwide. This debuted at the 76th Cannes Film Festival. COVID influenced the quarantine elements of the story, which were not originally in the screenplay, but were explored upon because, COVID affected everything. Speaking of, Bill Murray was supposed to be the motel manager, then got COVID and had to pull out of the project. So Steve Carell came in. But apparently, Bill Murray was given a different character who was only used in promotional film trailers for the movie, related to the theater troupe that were putting on the show in Asteroid City. So little fun facts. So yes, Bill Murray indeed was supposed to be in this movie because it is a Wes Anderson movie. But good for you, Steve Carell, popping up and getting a role in it. But that is all the background that I have. So let's read our synopsis here. World changing events spectacularly disrupt the annual Asteroid Day celebration in an American desert town, which also is on the same level as the marketing that completely leaves a lot of interesting parts of this movie out. I don't know about you. When I went to go see the press screening for this, I'm like, what is all of this? Because I did not expect any of like the not just hanging out in this little town kind of thing, but we'll get into that. So let's go around and give our general thoughts and then we can dive into some more specifics. Mr. Rowan, would you like to give your general thoughts on the film?
Yeah. Well, so when I saw this for the first time, I was not baffled, but honestly, like kind of impressed at um, like how Wes Anderson this was. Like this, I feel like is the most he has ever been up to this point because he was, as far as I know, like fairly, unrestrained, and he was essentially able to do whatever he wanted. Not necessarily for the first time, but I love him just being able to frame the camera in that very specific style that we've come to associate with him. He has this like ginormous cast that is like it's shocking that like as many people as are in the same frame, like whether that's even possible. Like these people were all on set at the same time, and I suppose COVID probably had something to do with that they were more available than they usually would be. But it is just kind of insane um how meticulous this is. And I know that's a word that's associated with a lot of Wes Anderson's work, but I really felt that this time around. And it's kind of, and I think this was what was holding me back the first time I saw it. It's very unemotional on the surface. It is not, I found it to be fairly cold, and I think a lot of that is the combination of the dry delivery of every single line, combined with the performance style that leads to that kind of delivery, but also the matter of fact way that everything is said, I think doesn't really lend itself to a very easy conveying of emotion. I rewatched this yesterday and I loved it. I loved it so much more than I did the first time. And this was the first time I was seeing it since I saw it in theaters, and I get it now. I am like fully bought into not just the multiple, layers of worlds that this movie is portraying, but also the very specific ideas that it has and how it's engaging in not the emotion of the characters, because the characters are so distanced from that emotion because they are actors in a play, first of all, and then the we don't really get to know the actors playing those characters super well because they're not on screen too often. But I see it more as a movie of ideas rather than a movie of emotion. But I think the emotion comes through those ideas in some very interesting ways that I still like. I'm still sort of unpacking this. So if you ask me, like to really get into that, I'm still sort of like figuring that out. But it's just such an interesting movie, and I love interesting movies. And this is maybe like one of the most interesting movies we've gotten in the last couple of years. And so I like really, really love it now much more than I did the first time I saw it.
Thank you, Rowan. How about you, Heath?
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I loved it when it came out. I rewatched it today with my wife, who had never gotten to see it before, so it was fun seeing her first viewing reaction to it. But for me, it still holds up beautifully, and I love it even more. I consider it one of Wes's best films, feature films that he's ever made. And happy to dive into it more, but I think it's brilliant.
How about you, Robert?
This was actually my fifth time watching the movie. It was my favorite movie of the year that it came out. So what, 2 years ago, whatever that was.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, I really love it. I said it's my favorite movie of the year it came out, and that I've seen it 5 times in that span. But it's still my number three Wes Anderson, which is saying a lot of uh, how much I love his movies. But it kind of quickly climbed up my rankings of his movies each time that I watched it. I was kind of like you, Rowan, the first time that I saw it. I wasn't necessarily too high on it. Didn't hate it, didn't dislike it. I was just like, oh, that was good. I'm kind of struggling to get into it and like get on its wavelength. But then the second time I saw it, it completely clicked, and I've just watched it a few more times since then. And yeah, I'm sure we'll dive into all the reasons why.
Yeah, this is my third time watching this because I saw this at a press screening and remembering thinking this was such an interesting, engaging, and creative film, but I still felt a lot of distance with it. And then I rewatched this last summer, I think, and then watching it again, this really clicked, and I'm gonna have to reassess my feelings about it, especially like in the context of movies that came out 2 years ago. But this is starting to feel like Life Aquatic to me, which I'm a humongous fan of that movie, but it took me watching and watching and watching and watching for me to really start getting on the same wavelength of that film. And there's so many things that I really love about this. I particularly love the dynamic between Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson. And I feel like Scarlett Johansson just slipped right into this Wes Anderson scape like a
Mhm.
glove. And just really fits into this vibe, which makes me excited because she's going to be in the Venetian scheme as well. With that trailer coming out, it was very interesting seeing Tom Hanks in this, and also that one shot of him when they show the actor. version of him. It just looks so cool, just lounging there. Um, and this was so unexpected to me, the framing device to this. And the framing device is something that's grown on me over the three times that I've watched this. And one of my favorite scenes in probably any Wes Anderson movie at this point now is that fire escape scene where just like you just have one very famous actor popping up there and just mic dropping an amazing performance in like 2 minutes. And also something that really stuck out to me this time around is I'm such a huge fan of Alexandre Desplat and
Mhm.
especially Grand Budapest Hotel's score. Something about his score for this really pulled a lot of things together for this, and it really moved me a lot, to be perfectly honest. But I guess let's go around and say what are some of the things that really stood out to us that made this, as we went around, everybody seems pretty high on this one, but what were some of the things that stood out to all of you? Whoever would like to go first.
I
I just think,
loved
oh, go ahead, Rowan.
I'll be brief, I promise. I adore the
Okay,
production.
Adrian Brody.
I adore
Turn the music down, please. Turn it down.
the production design. I just think it's so fantastic that they just kind of built a whole town
Mhm.
in Spain. I think it looks fantastic, and it feels very in Wes Anderson's style. And I'm glad that he did get to make this kind of from scratch because that is the way that he gets to make things the way he wants them to be because he knows how they're going to come across on camera. And just every single one of these sets is so fantastic. A lot of it's fairly minimalist, and I think that's part of what makes it great. And then there's the theater set that we only see in black and white that I also think is fantastic. So like just the production design, I think is like a huge strength of the movie.
I absolutely love the unnecessary and incomplete overpass. It might be one of my favorite bits of any set I've ever seen in any movie ever. Every time that's on screen, I laugh just looking at it. It's so stupid. It's the greatest thing ever.
Such a great little choice there. Robert?
Uh, I really love the way that even though a lot of people have said that over the years, Wes Anderson's movies have become more and more like artificial, and you can feel the emotion less and less because you talk about Life Aquatic, for example, because you brought it up. That one is probably towards the very beginning of his turn towards what like French Dispatch and Asteroid City have become. But like you can, those characters do just on the surface feel a lot more human than the ones in this movie do. But I
Mhm.
think that beyond the artifice, this is one of Wes Anderson's deepest and most emotional movies. And I think it's he's reaching for something like as a person, he's reaching for something emotionally in terms of just like why am I doing any of this? What is the point of life? How do I find out what I'm supposed to be doing? How do I know if what I'm doing is right? Um, and you can definitely dive into it as just like a commentary on filmmaking and a commentary on art. And you can say that for like a lot of movies, especially as very famous directors get deeper and deeper into their careers. And that one doesn't always interest me too much because I feel like I can't relate to that as much. But so like when I hear certain like interpretations of movies just being like, oh, this is about making movies, I'm like, all right, but what else is it about? And in the case of Asteroid City, it's about just like it says keep telling the story, and you can say that as just like keep making movies or keep trying to work through your life, but that's what all these people are trying to do. And I think there's a reason that a lot of these characters are so, I guess, inhuman or just like such blank slates in a lot of ways. And that's because they all kind of feel like the alien. None of them feel like they really fit in, that none of them know what their place in the world is. A lot of it is confusing for them and they don't know what's going on. But at the end of the day, you just got to keep living, and that's kind of what the movie's ultimate thesis is. And I just, yeah, there's my long-winded thing about I love how it brings every single piece of the movie together to just be like, hey, nothing makes sense. There's so much existential fear and existential dread, but we can't control any of it a lot of the time. We don't know why things happen or why we do the things we do ourselves sometimes, but just like put one foot in, put one foot in front of the other and just keep going.
I think that's a really like I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that is a fascinating thesis for a Wes Anderson movie to have because especially now and more recently his movies have been the presentation has been very intentional and very structured and very like his camera, like where the camera moves, how the camera moves. It is all or at least it feels more strict and intentional than other movies do, even though, of course, that is not necessarily true. But the fact that, one of his movies is very directly about the things we can't control when it appears we're watching something incredibly controlled, I think is a
Hmm.
very interesting dichotomy that I think he's played around with a couple of times, but this is the strongest instance of it for sure.
That's why
Yeah,
the
just
characters are so important in this one because as even though it has all that meticulous framing and stuff like that you're talking about, Rowan, the characters are all still like no one knows what's going on. I don't know if
Right.
you notice with like everyone is written in a similar way where they say things like, um, I think it's time to hop on the Wasteland Reviewer today, I think. They just like are always saying like I think and maybe or I don't know or perhaps I should or things like that.
It was weird when Hope Davis said she should hop on the Wasteland Reviewer.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like it kind of took me out a little bit.
Oh
Shane, you're a
my.
lot bigger than I realized. But no one's certain of anything, not even just like the smallest things that they're saying they want to do or that they even think about the world. So I really love that detail in the screenwriting.
Go ahead, Heath.
I also, while I definitely co-sign all of that, and I also think he's coping with grief in a fascinating way here. Now,
Hmm.
grief is not something that Anderson has not talked about before. That's actually, in many ways, an Anderson staple, especially something like the Darjeeling Limited is just like directly about that, and in other films too. But this one, I found it very interesting because I think it's his way of rectifying and coping with the five stages of grief, particularly as it pertains to Jason Schwartzman's character, going through denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Uh, it's it's blatantly in the script, but at the same time, it's handled so subtly that I would imagine most people just miss it. All the way down to opening, and we don't even really know what's going on with the mom. And then we find out through exposition from Tom Hanks over the phone that the mom is dead and he's in denial and he doesn't want to tell
Yeah.
his kids. And like from there, it progresses. And the relationship that he develops with Scarlett Johansson's character, that is the through line for me that really gets me, especially as that transitions to that balcony scene at the end
Yes.
with Margot Robbie. I feel that that's all intentionally very connected. And I find myself now, when we get to that balcony scene, I'm just crying. I think it's beautiful. I think it's very well handled. And going back to what you were saying, Robert, it's the idea of you can't control it. Life is a fickle bitch. Nothing is for certain. But the only thing you can do is find a way to accept it, as difficult as that may be, and move forward with the new day. There is a new dawn, and you can survive and you can move on. And that's almost to the what is the human experience. Like that's all any of us really can do about anything is live. We our one true defining trait that we all share is we all have to exist and find a way to continue existing. I know, Rowan, it's just terrible. Um, and I found it very profound and very moving in how subtly he handles it, but then also how directly he handles it when we get like the seminar at the theater class. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. And, that's very evocative to me and very intentionally talking about, yep, the only way to move on is to force yourself to move on. I can't start the new day until I force myself to go to bed and accept that this day has already happened. And whether that pertains to the loss of a wife or a mother, or maybe your acting job isn't going well, or some alien is coming down from outer space and you don't even know if the human race is going to exist tomorrow. Well, it doesn't matter. You have no choice but to assume tomorrow is going to happen and you just make the best decisions that you can. And there's something existential, like you said, Robert, about it, but also something profound. And that is wholly empathetic to the human experience. And that's what makes this film resonate so well with me, is that I think thematically he's doing almost more here than maybe any of his films. Now, I like you guys, I don't have this as my number one, but I said it's near my top. I think this is in my top three, and that's just because there's a couple other films that I think are just more entertaining. I have more fun watching it, but this is, in terms of his thematic depth, I think Anderson pushed himself here in a way that I don't, at least from my perspective, I don't know if he ever had before. Um, and I was very moved by this film, and still to this day disappointed that this received no love from the Academy Awards in any category or situation whatsoever, which I think is horseshit.
which is ridiculous.
Yes.
I have a couple of things to throw out there in terms of that. It's very interesting because there has been that criticism against Wes Anderson and how his films have gotten so dry like this. I don't know if you all feel the same, but I feel like a lot of his characters act the way they do because they're sad.
Yes,
and not that
100%.
and not that it's like, to me it doesn't seem like they're just being dry and distant from like just to be dry and distant because that's the style going on. It's like so many of his films are about sad people,
Yes.
and like watching like the Royal Tenenbaums, they're all sad people, and the issue is them finding joy with each other again. And I think that like so many of the characters in this movie are sad, and especially at the with Schwartzman, and like Hanks's character doesn't want to show it, but like he lost his daughter too, and they're all dealing with the sadness. And then you do get that existential dread of like, oh my god, an alien has dropped. Like, what are we supposed to do about this? And which also, humanity's going to be okay. We've been living with aliens for 70 years because Jeff Goldblum is here. Which
This is
that's the
true.
most brilliant casting ever, is to cast Jeff Goldblum most likely to be an actual alien as an alien in this movie.
I could play it as a
Um
metaphor.
but I just love the growth that Jason Schwartzman's character goes through. I also find like his dynamic in the like context of the acting part of this and putting on this performance with him and Edward Norton, like their whole first meeting, is such an interesting dynamic in this. And just the way that this film struck a chord too, because we were all forced to quarantine and forced to just get by. Like, we weren't living our lives in the way that we define living our lives, but it was just about moving forward. And I think that's pretty profound in terms of how he threaded that needle of like, this is a COVID film without obnoxiously trying to remind us, hey, you were in a pandemic and had a quarantine,
Yeah.
which so many movies hit way too soon and in such a clunky way. But this really made you feel that, like, we didn't know when that was all going to blow over. We had no idea when we were going to get back to our lives. We just had this expectation of, hey, keep moving forward. And eventually it would be okay. And we got through it. Um, it's just, and this film just has so much richness and depth to everything. And going back to my point about the score, that score hits such an emotional crescendo during that scene with Margot Robbie that like I'm not surprised that you have such an emotional reaction to it. And as somebody who does not cry during movies, it's like I still get emotional watching that scene. And it's just something that hits in a way that I like, it's like this wave of emotions that comes over you, just like, this is so unexpected. And this come like, it feels like it comes out of nowhere, but it's really realizing that this whole film has been building up to this point
Mhm.
where it's just like, this feels like such a natural moment to have that catharsis of what's been going on this whole entire time.
Yeah. Shane, you were talking about a couple things. One about Schwartzman's relationship with Edward Norton, like the actor and playwright
Mhm.
relationship. It's stated in the Cranston voiceover or narration that the Norton character ends up dying, but like during the run of the play or something like that.
Yes.
So the Schwartzman character, both of his characters are grieving.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see the way that Wes Anderson works with like how you take parts of yourself and put them into your art, and how the real life you informs the artistic expression that you bring. So that's really interesting there. Also, you're talking about how Wes Anderson often makes movies about very sad characters, and that's very true. And it's kind of just kind of tangentially why the AI stuff can never actually replicate what makes Wes Anderson, because people just like on the surface are like, oh, he does everything symmetrically, he's quirky. But it's so much deeper than that, and that's why I say he's one of my favorite directors, is because he has this very specific style, but also he, in such a unique and distinct and personal way, is able to make everything so human and deep and emotional
Mm.
and again personal, that like I, I don't see other directors working with this level of quote unquote artifice and still being able to touch me like on a human level. Um, and then my last response point is, Heath, you were talking about they can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. Uh, I don't disagree with your interpretation. I think another way that you can also take it is just like you have to imagine that the world can get better. Like you have to, what happens when you fall asleep is that you dream. So like you
Yep.
can't wake up from a dream if you're not dreaming in the first place. So like that's kind of how I've always taken it, is that you gotta imagine more for your life. You gotta like not only just step and put one foot in front of the other and just take it day by day, but like believe that your life can be more and believe that you can experience more and not be taken down and stopped by your grief, or not have like your problems and issues and roadblocks like completely stop you in your tracks. Just like know that there's more, and then wake up from it and take the lessons that you've learned from that sleep, and then go on. So
Yeah,
I think a
absolutely.
lot
And
of things work together.
that's what makes it so special is there are so many different interpretations. I even once we got to the scene that really starts the end of the movie where Schwartzman walks out of the middle of the play because he needs to go talk to Adrian Brody and be like, "So what's the point? What am I doing here? What am I feeling?" From that point on, my wife looked at me. She's like, "What's going on?" I'm just like, "Emily, from this point on, it's vibes. You're gonna come out of this different than I'm gonna come out of this, and what happens the rest of the movie, you can interpret any way you want." And it really is, and I think that's what makes it so unique as well. As an audience member, you can imprint your lived experiences into the script and the words, but the way the scripts and words are organized, it allows for interpretation that's unique to every single audience member. But yeah, I completely agree with that interpretation as well. Or even just the same old metric of, you know, you can't dream forever. At some point, you got to take action. I
Yeah.
can dream about a new tomorrow or a new beginning or a better future, but as long as I'm not doing anything to advance my situation or take action that can improve my life, I all I am doing is dreaming. And you have to wake up at some point and assert yourself. And you could call that the pull yourself out by the bootstraps syndrome as much as you want. And while there is correlation there, I really think Wes is talking about so much more than that. And because it's not about like achieving like a specific goal, like, oh, I want to be financially successful or I want to, this, that, or the other thing. I'm sure you could, again, imprint that on that depending on your interpretation as the audience. But I think he is just talking in general about life is a mystery. We all are on our own journey, and all we can do is work towards a better tomorrow for ourselves. Whatever that tomorrow is, that's what you're building towards.
Just to add some not so deep positives to this too. One, that Roadrunner is
Is
the real
amazing.
MVP.
Best credits sequence ever. I love it.
And that freight train song has
So
been
catchy.
stuck in my head for 2 years
Yes.
because of this movie. And just the whole vibe, like that song's such a vibe and really just captures the personality of this film and the quirkiness and the bright colors of this whole little desert community. Just those little elements are nice toppings to throw on top of this very dense cake.
And I want to stress as well, we've been talking about how this is a very serious film and you can take a lot out of it thematically and emotionally can resonate with you in different ways. And it is all those things. But it's also just really fun and it's funny.
Mm.
This movie is so funny. I don't
That
know
was
about
going to
you
be the
guys.
next thing I brought up too. Yeah.
One of my favorite ongoing bits, and there's a lot of just on from like random bank heist robbers being shot at by cops, just
Yeah.
driving through the town for no purpose, my multiple points throughout the movie or whatever. But my favorite ongoing bit that never fails to make me laugh my butt off is Arstel Meehan, which is Liev Schreiber's kid, who's like, "Do you dare me? You want to like the dare guy?" And you don't even know what he's talking about most of the time. Sometimes he's clear. It's like, "Do you dare me to push the button?" But sometimes he's just like, "Do you dare me?" And you're like, "What is he talking about?" And then all of a sudden, he falls off a roof, and you're like, "What just happened?" And it's the perfect blending of deadpan and slapstick humor that is a direct correlation to my funny bone. I cannot help but laugh every time that kid does anything. I think it's hysterical. And again, the movie is littered with this stuff. What are some of your guys' favorite funny moments?
Well, that repeated gag pays off with like, what is the purpose? Why the
Yes.
dare? He goes, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm afraid. Otherwise, nobody will notice my existence in the universe. And like, that's one of like the main themes of the movie.
Right.
Yep.
My
I mean,
favorite.
that's
Oh, go
why
ahead, Ron.
people like act out some of the
Right.
time and like do crazy things is to get noticed so
I
they
just
don't
want attention. I
disappear
want
into the
someone
crowd.
to, yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
to
No.
recognize that I'm here. Yeah.
Hmm.
I just want to call out Tom Hanks as one of my favorite comedic parts. I was worried going into the movie that it's like, oh, Tom Hanks in a Wes Anderson movie, because like whenever I see Tom Hanks in a movie, I'm like, oh, that's Tom Hanks. But I feel like he fits perfectly, seamlessly into
Same.
this.
Hmm.
I would say it's my favorite performance of his in the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. Uh, just when he does that thing to Jason Schwartzman, I lose it every time. I like when they're on the phone talking about you didn't love me. He's like, I didn't. You didn't think I was good enough. Yeah, we're saying the same thing. Like his line deliveries are excellent. I just think he's hilarious all the way through.
I love that Matt Dillon gag at the very beginning of the
Oh
movie
yeah.
with
Oh
the
yeah.
car. Because like not only is it hilarious, but it is also soul crushing.
Hmm.
If you've ever owned a car,
Hmm.
you know exactly how they're feeling in that moment where it's just like this could be like, oh look, or like your service light comes on and it's just because the gas attendant didn't tighten the gas tank cap,
Right.
or your transmission's going out and now you owe thousands of dollars. And just like the whole thing where it's just like, well, it's one of two things. Which also love seeing Matt Dillon in something meaningful and it not just some random straight to VOD thriller or something stupid like that. And him just like, well, it's a third thing, and it's just like flopping around, and it's just like, oh my, this is the worst nightmare.
I loved essentially any time a child was on screen, I thought it was hilarious. I think every child is so funny in this movie. And the vending machines, I think, is such a
Yes.
funny recurring bit where you can essentially get anything from the vending machines. You can get land from the vending machines, but it turns out you can't actually buy the land from the vending machines. It's just so like that's the sort of thing that like how do you even think of stuff like this? And but when you see it up on screen, like yes, this is a very obvious, both sight and verbal gag. Like it just all of this works so well. I am so glad that I watched it again because now I feel like I got so much more out of it this second time.
I love the
I
game that the
wonder.
stargazers play where they try to name
Yeah.
like famous people or just people in general. And it's a memory game. And they're like, I don't know if we can play this. I don't know if any
Like
of
we're
us
all
are
too
ever going to
smart.
lose.
Just
And
go
then
on
like we
forever.
cut away and like 40 minutes later, we just see them still playing the same game. They've not stopped. No one's forgetting anything. It's just running background gags like that. Perfect.
I wish I was watching this with my wife for her to bring up how they probably all have autism. Because she works with kids with autism, and it's just like, well, they probably
I have a crazy question, and like this isn't a
um
question that we can answer, but how did Wes Anderson sneak a full frontal like scene into a PG-13 movie? Like that is kind of crazy.
Was it PG-13? It was
Yes,
PG-13.
this is a PG-13 movie.
How did he do it? I don't know, but he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like
Because it's like
crazy
point
that
0.4 seconds.
Yeah, I was gonna
yeah,
say
like
I don't even
occasionally
think it's a
these
full
things
second on the
happen.
screen, and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the dudes at the rating board were like, ScarJo?
Right.
And then completely
Midge
forgot about
Campbell, like they say
Yeah,
every time they
Mitch
bring.
Kill.
it. They just moved on. They're like, we'll allow it.
yeah. I actually love the Jason Schwartzman line reading. She's like, "I have a nude scene. Do you want to see me do it? Did I say anything? Did I say yes? I meant to say yes."
I said yes in my head.
I said it in my head. Yeah, it's great. Speaking of Schwartzman, I did want to say this real quick. I genuinely, and I talked earlier about how this got no Oscars love, not even for production design, which is ridiculous. But
Ridiculous.
I, for me in 2023, on my short list was Schwartzman for Best Lead Actor. I think this is the best work he has ever done in any film ever. I haven't
Have you
seen
seen
his entire
Queer?
filmography, but I've seen a damn decent chunk of it, and I probably would have had Rushmore at the top prior to this. But now I think the range he's doing, especially as he's doing dual roles, as he's doing
Mm.
the actor and then the character, I think he's tremendous here. And it blew my mind that I hardly saw that take from anyone, coming. And when I say anyone, I mean like major news out like Variety or people that are doing this. I'm like, why is no one at Vulture saying like, oh my God, Jason Schwartzman's amazing at this. Please, someone praise this man. This is his career best in my opinion. I thought he was great.
I really hope this isn't turning into, well, that's just Wes being Wes. And they
Yeah.
just let him off doing his thing and completely ignore that there's something special going on here and should be recognized. Because the fact that, well, I kind of defeated the purpose of my statement because he did also win an Oscar at that Academy
Well,
Awards.
it is interesting
But
how,
That he
like
wasn't
in,
at.
in some ways, like Royal Tenenbaums was his like invitation of like, okay, you can come to the dance. You're included in the club. And then it was Grand Budapest where it cemented
yes,
it. And it was just like, oh, you've made it. You didn't get the awards this time, but like here's multiple nominations. You're here, buddy. We're gonna serious consideration anytime you come out with a film like a Scorsese or a Spielberg. And then nothing, virtually nothing since Grand Budapest, which is just bizarre to me.
yeah.
And not again, I can kind of see it where like, at least for me personally, outside of Asteroid City, I've enjoyed his films since Grand Budapest, but they haven't been some of his biggest successes. So I can see kind of why. But this one, I thought Asteroid City was kind of a return to form. It was a return to Grand Budapest or uh, Royal Tenenbaums or Moonrise Kingdom. And I'm just like, why is this not getting the love and adoration it deserves? It
I
drove me
think this
nuts.
was a lot harder to appreciate
Yeah.
than like I Grand Budapest Hotel is one of my favorite movies,
Hmm.
period. But like it's so damn entertaining.
Yeah.
And that at least makes it so much more accessible, with everything else going on. But like I feel like this is a hard movie, and I think it's one of the reasons why it took some of us a couple of times to like really get into it. And like the Academy's gonna watch something more than once.
If at all.
Um I don't yeah, to the point at all. Going into the award show. But like I feel like I think this one's gonna grow on people longer, but I don't think it was appreciated when it came out.
Shane,
Yep.
what you're saying is kind of something like the last big thing I wanted to bring up. I We're all familiar with Wes Anderson's filmography. Obviously, you are, Shane. You've been doing this thing. Um, I'm I'm just curious how like someone who is just like, oh, look at this cast. Let me go see this new movie. Like how they might have taken this because I really feel like a lot of what I get out of it comes from my familiarity with Wes Anderson
Yeah.
and like
Right.
my already deep love and adoration for him as a filmmaker. So like I'm willing to give it the benefit of a doubt and was willing to go back and watch it a second time because I knew there was something I was
And the
missing. I
third
knew, yeah,
and
and
the
a third and a
fourth.
fourth and a fifth.
The
And I
fifth.
knew there was something that like the first time I saw it, there was something I liked, but I didn't quite get it. But like oh, it's Wes Anderson. Let me check it out again. Oh, now it's unlocked for me. But some people, it's probably just way too like even further than arm's length for them. So, I that's not that's a different conversation than the Academy one because people in the Academy definitely know who Wes Anderson is. I'm just talking more about general audiences who know Tom Hanks and Scarlett Johansson and Margot Robbie and whatever, and see this and they're like, "What in the world is that?"
Well, I'm imagining a lot of mainstream audiences exactly had that reaction of what the
Yeah,
hell was that? And even from the trailer, they were probably like, what the hell is that? And the trailer didn't even allude to all the other layers
yeah,
of storytelling. Because like I wrote for lessons from the Wasteland about framing narratives and the fact that Grand Budapest Hotel is a framing narrative within a framing narrative within a framing narrative within a framing narrative within a framing narrative. But the thing is, it's so subtle and quick that you kind of forget about it. Like this is something completely more complex and playing around with that. It's so much more mature from a filmmaking standpoint and a storytelling standpoint, but I feel like that's all going to be lost on a lot of people that are just going to a movie to enjoy a movie.
right.
And I feel like this is probably one of his most inaccessible films to general audiences. And I'm even surprised that it made $56 million, 50, 54, $56 million worldwide at that point. I wish it made more, but
Hmm.
Well,
it's
that's
not
also just
Minecraft.
another thing is as much as I understand the sentiment and Robert, what you're talking about, I don't even know how many casual moviegoers are going to see something like this. Like we are as movie people, as letterboxed kids and or whatever, there's a demographic of movie goers that will be like, Scorsese's coming out with a new one, Spielberg's a new one, Anderson's a new one, Greta Gerwig's got something like Bong Joon-ho's here. Like you're going to all of those just because you recognize it. But I would imagine the vast majority of movie audiences don't know Wes Anderson's name, other than maybe a percentage of TikTok reels. And then they again that just goes to, hey, look, he does symmetrical framing and it's quirky, ha ha ha, and like that's it, and that's like the extent of their knowledge. And maybe they saw a trailer for this, but again, although the trailer doesn't get nearly into what the movie is really about and has no allusions to that last 10 minutes of the movie where things really start to get very existential. uh Even the trailer was still quirky Wes Anderson stuff that I'm pretty sure if you saw that trailer you'd be like, what is this? It may have all
Hmm.
these people, but I'm sure there are some casual people that just walked in off the street because they're like, oh, Scarlett Johansson's hot and Tom Hanks is a legend, I'm gonna go see it. But I just don't know if it was that many people.
They should have
Rowan's
advertised that
smiling
there was
because
a
that was him.
force.
Yeah,
What,
yeah, yeah.
Robert?
That was exactly me. That's why I went to
They
see it.
should have advertised the 4 second full frontal of Scarlett Johansson. That would have put butts in seats.
Honestly, you're probably not wrong.
I know how to market to human beings. Do
Yeah.
marketing people who make trailers? But there you go. Does anybody have any other thoughts that they wanted to bring up about the film before we wrap up and head into recommendations?
I could watch Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman talk to each other through Windows for 3 hours. That's just great. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. Every time they did one of those bits, I was like, I love every second of
It
this.
was so good.
Yeah.
I love them together in this.
I'll just bring up a couple more funny moments that I wanted to hit on.
Okay.
Otherwise, I got all my deep thoughts out. When Jason Schwartzman is saying to his daughters, like, you probably don't even understand the concept of time. They go, 15 minutes is 6,200 hours. And he goes, exactly. That's not your fault. Uh, or when Jeffrey Wright goes like, what did the president say? He's furious. Like, I feel like that's just quintessential Wes Anderson. That's the most quintessential Wes Anderson in the whole movie. And then the
Also,
last,
Jeffrey Wright is terrific here.
he's
Him
terrific.
giving his like whatever the hell story. It's like part one.
And then switching microphones.
Chapter one, yeah.
After one. That was ridiculous, but it's so funny.
And in that, this was the last thing I was going to bring up is when he goes, if you wanted to live a nice, quiet, peaceful life, you picked the wrong time to get born. Like, that's a really funny line, a really funny way to phrase it. But also, it's just like
Haven't
goes to
we?
the existentialism of the whole movie, right? It's just, this is not the time to just settle down and be normal and just like have life wash over you. There's always lots of anxieties and existential threats. So uh, it's not getting any better.
Right.
Welcome to America.
Exactly.
And all I'm going to say is the poor Cho family in their tent.
I know.
Yep.
I just love how they got all checked in. He's like, here's your tent. I was like, what do you mean it's a tent? Well, cabin number 7 burnt down, so now you have a tent. And
I
then
love
when
that
they
he gave him
panned,
a key still.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then it panned over and you just see the tent and then a burnt down building, and you're just like,
Oop.
dang. So there you go. But no, this movie is charming and deep and existential and so many beautiful things. And hopefully this one gets more attention from people. It'll be interesting to see how the Phoenician scheme goes, which I feel like I guess is a little bit more accessible because it seems to be some kind of like crime movie. You know, it's gonna have some action in it.
Uh-huh.
And Michael Cera.
And Michael Cera. Yeah.
That's the
Doing an
missing.
accent.
Well, that and to the point of what we were talking about earlier, that actually is a big part of why Grand Budapest was more successful. Like you guys were saying, it kind of had a little bit more of that traditional movie entertainment. Hey, it's kind of a heist and there's a little bit of action. Very Wes
Prison
Anderson
Escape. Yeah.
kind of action, but still action of some kind.
Yeah.
And you got Nazis being punched in the face and like so yeah, you if he wants to do a heist movie with some action, who knows? Maybe this is what gets him back into the Academy's good graces.
Freaking fascists. Now I truly know why Grand Budapest is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Watching fascists get punched in the face is one of my favorite things. I just wish the world around me appreciated just as much.
Looking at
But
you, Rowan.
anyway,
Oh my God, does Heath have a movie to tell you about?
I was gonna
Segue.
say
Yeah.
you're quoting an exact line from the review of the movie I'm gonna talk about in a little bit.
oh, yes, you will. So let's get into our recommendations and segue. Rowan,
I was recently on a break from work. And one of my projects was to watch a 7-hour Soviet era adaptation of Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, which I've never read, but I've heard great things about the book, though I doubt I will ever read it. And this film, released in 4 parts from 1966 to 1967, directed by a Soviet guy named Sergei Bondarchuk. I probably mispronounced that. It's fine. He's dead. He doesn't care. And this
Do you think any of
this
his films can get financed these days?
shut up. Um, this movie is like one of the coolest pieces of art I've ever seen. It is epic in every sense of the word. And I don't know if any of you have read War and Peace. I didn't. Only knew like a portion of the story before I watched this movie.
was it
It is
because you
just
saw that Broadway show?
I listened to the soundtrack. I haven't even seen the show. But yeah, it's just this movie is so like mind-blowingly cool because it was made in the 60s, and so it had none of the modern technology that we have to make like giant sweeping epics, and yet there are shots that are clearly from helicopters and like massive battle scenes with thousands of extras, like tens of thousands of horses, and it's just like massive, ballroom sequences, and we see, Moscow burning when Napoleon is arriving. It is like a production the level of which I have never seen in a in a 20th century film. Um, you can tell everything about what any of the characters are feeling at any point just from a look. Like that is just how like astoundingly good all of these performers are. The director, by the way, also plays Pierre, one of the leads of the story, which is incredibly impressive considering how much Pierre has to do over the course of this story. But I just like was so floored by this movie, and it's a it's an investment, but it's four movies, the first of which is 2.5 hours, and all of the ones after that are like 90 minutes or less. So it's really not too terrible of a buy-in if you split it up between the four parts. So I just massively recommend this to anyone interested in movies and the art of movie making, because like want to read all about this. I want to watch so many documentaries on how they made this, because it's like just it's something I've never seen before, which I really am like. I always get excited when I see, an older film that just like makes me so happy that I love movies, and that like this is what I want to do with my life. So yeah, War and Peace, 1967, strong recommend if you have the time.
What is what you want to do with your life? War?
Movies,
Oh,
movies.
I would like to
War's a close
inform
second.
okay.
I'd like to inform Rowan, congratulations, your platinum cinephile card will be coming in the
Yay.
mail for completing the achievement of watching War and Peace for 7 hours.
I'm bowing.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, they could see it, Rowan, because
Yeah,
this
luckily
is
this is a
indeed
video
video.
podcast.
It's a show on YouTube.
I'm just so used to podcasts. I'm spoiled. I'm spoiled.
Heath, what would you like to recommend? That is
I
not 7 hours.
definitely not 7. It's not even 2 hours. I am recommending Freaky Tales. What's the best way to explain it? This is like if someone saw Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction and it was like, cool, that was fun, but what if even more ridiculous with its individual anthology stories that still somehow tie together, and in the late 80s in Oakland with a whole bunch of Nazis. And uh it pulls it off. This movie is great. It is hilarious. It actually has something to say. The action and violence is tremendous. And you see a whole bunch of Nazis get effed up. And I'm all here for it. As I said in my review, remember, folks, it is always acceptable to punch a Nazi in the face. And this movie takes that to heart. Um, and it's just a wild, wild ride. I saw one review say that it's Pulp Fiction meets Scott Pilgrim versus the World with a sprinkling of the Warriors. And no, I will not explain. And they're right. It is those things. So if you like any of those kind of movies, especially the Pulp Fictionness of it, this movie's great. It's very small market, very small budget. Even on Letterboxd right now, it only has 11,000 watches. So like, you might not even have this in your city, but if you do, I promise this is one of the underrated gems that have come out so far this year. When I said there are two movies that I think are actually great so far this year, this was one of them. This and Black Bag. So
I feel like I should go back and re-rate any movie where Nazis are punched or killed and just make them all 5 stars
yeah,
just to prove a point. So I'll be potentially doing that later for Freaky Tales. Just like 5 star, Nazis got punched in the face.
yep.
Also, the cast of Freaky Tales is like kind of insane. I think partially because it is an anthology and not all of the
Yes.
characters have to be there at the same time. But Pedro Pascal, Ben Mendelsohn, Jack Champion, who is Spider in the Avatar sequels, is one of the characters in the first chapter. It's just like there
Tom
are so
Hanks.
many
Yeah. Tom
recognizable.
Hanks as a video
Tom Hanks.
store owner.
I wasn't sure if,
Hilarious.
if you wanted to give it away, but yeah. Tom Hanks is in it. Maybe one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's just so fun and like vivacious, and I like that's another movie kind of like War and Peace that just like makes me excited that like movies like this can be made, and that maybe there's not like a massive market for it, but people will turn out for stuff like this. And yeah, definitely one of the most fun theater experiences I've had in a while.
You heard
Marshawn
it
Lynch
here
just
first.
driving a bus for no reason.
War and
Yeah.
Peace and Freaky Tales are on the same cinematic level.
Nazi punching is the Nazi punching business is a booming.
Yes, it is.
Robert, what are you gonna recommend?
Um, what was it called, Shane? You wrote it down, didn't you?
The Clubhouse.
The Clubhouse, the story of the 2024 Boston Red Sox. That's what it is.
Props to you for
I've been,
memorizing that title, Robert.
yeah, it was really tough. We just cut out those past 5 seconds. I've been out of town for about a week, and I have not watched movies in that time. But being out of town also meant I was on a plane, so I watched this whole Netflix thing on the plane and a little bit waiting in the airport before that. So, uh, if you're a baseball fan, especially if you're a Red Sox fan, it's a really good time. It chronicles their whole season in 2024. They had a Netflix crew following them. It gets the title is what was it? The Clubhouse, because the point is to like focus on the players as people, and not as much about just like zoo animals there for entertainment. So that's like an interesting angle we don't get a lot about modern baseball players, even though we have like a higher access to athletes and celebrities than we ever have before. We
Except
still,
like baseball is so like so many baseball players are like not interesting
yeah,
compared to like other sports. So it's just
yeah.
like it's kind of cool to get to see like they have personalities.
And the league does a horrible job of marketing them as personalities and as players. So, like this is it's kind of Hard Knocks-ish in that it just like gives you an insight into these into a single team. I think Netflix is planning on doing this for a different team each year. I could be wrong about that. But it left out some stuff as someone who followed the whole team or who followed the whole season of last year's team. It left out some particularly important points. And like even just as a piece of documentary filmmaking, if you knew nothing about the team before watching it, like it's begins some threads and then like doesn't pick them up, or either that or it just like finishes them off with a title card in the very end of the very last episode. It's like, okay, like stuff happened that you could have chronicled with your cameras and talking heads, but hey, it's a good time. And as someone, like I said, who's a Red Sox fan and who likes baseball, it's about everything I could have asked for.
Well, at least they didn't follow around a team expecting them to complete a dynasty just for them to lose in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Which I would love for that documentary about the Kansas City Chiefs to end with like the Always Sunny music playing and just a title card. They lost to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Didn't they get demolished too? Like,
It was a
yeah.
massacre. It was embarrassing
Rowan, what
for
were your thoughts on the
anybody
Super
that
Bowl?
wasn't rooting for the Eagles. Um,
I love the Super Bowl. I was watching every single second of it. I definitely wasn't at work and not paying attention to it at all.
I wasn't
Sounds right.
sitting cackling in my recliner every time Mahomes got sacked.
I loved
Yeah.
every
Which,
second of it. It was great.
oh, I feel like the Phillies would be an interesting team to follow around because they're a strange bunch of people.
Bryce Harper
Um,
drinking like unpasteurized milk or whatever.
Oh God.
I just want to follow Kyle Schwarber around, and I want them to talk to Nick Castellanos about his whole thing where he hits home runs when horrible things happen in the world. Just like, what gives you the motivation to hit home runs when horrible things are happening out
He
there?
wants to give people a distraction. That's probably what it is.
Um, horrible inflation reaping, wrecking America hits a grand slam. Thanks, Nick Castellanos. I'll give my usual three recommendations real quick. So, new film, Warfare. One of the most stressful experiences I've had sitting in a movie theater in a long ass time. Watching this in IMAX, I almost jumped out of my seat when bombs went off. This was wild experience. And
If
this
this does
had
not get nominated for sound design at the Oscars, I will flip a table. Like it is
Ooh,
deafening.
I hope it doesn't because I would love to see that.
I will record it for you. The sound design here is otherworldly good. I genuinely think it's maybe not worth seeing for that alone, but if you are already interested in the movie, then that's enough of the reason to tip the scales. Genuinely.
hairstyling and makeup for the absolutely
Ugh. Oh,
disgusting. Uh, this was like worst body horror than most horror movies that are body
yes.
horror movies.
Yes.
Like this is wild, and it has a really good cast anchoring this all down with a lot of young talent. It was so interesting seeing Michael Gandolfini
Yeah.
as a soldier in this, who's actually kind of a klutz also, which was like oddly like, is this a slight attempt at comic relief for a moment? I don't know because I feel so uncomfortable watching this movie. Warfare was just incredibly put together. And look at Alex Garland. He made weird ass movies for years, and now he's just like, let's make it real. And it's
Yeah.
just too real. Like, I can't handle this. One
So there's no
film,
Natalie Portman dancing with her reflection self in a lighthouse, is there?
and there
No.
was no Oscar Isaac cutting an effing rug. Oh, the Disco
Wait,
Music.
what movies did you guys watch? Those both happened in my screening of Warfare.
I thought
Now there
one
is
of my
dancing in Warfare. The opening
Yeah,
is
yeah.
quite
well,
intense.
one of my favorite things the internet has done is instead of that music video, it's Oscar Isaac from Ex Machina, and them all dancing, watching it. I'm like, that would have been the most hilarious meta
Just
thing to
watching
do.
watching Ex Machina in 2006.
Oh, wild. One film off my watch list is No Regrets for Our Youth, which is an Akira Kurosawa film that came out in 1946, which is about a young woman whose father, who is a professor, loses his job during the height of rising fascism in Japan in 1931. She falls in love with a student who is a anti-fascist activist, and this film has a lot of fascism in it and a lot of anti-fascism things on theme. And this is a really well acted, really well shot and put together film. And it was extremely unexpected for me for Akira Kurosawa. And this is a realizing this is part of a Criterion collection with post-war Kurosawa that I really want to get now. So thanks, movie. Now we have to pay Criterion $55 or wait until the Criterion sale and pay half price.
Good for you.
But this is a really impactful film. And for 1946, like this looks really great too. And then lastly, one of my movies I rewatched was Akira. And this movie is weird, but it is also one of the greatest animes of all time. And if you can sit through this and still buy into just how weird it gets, it is a crazy, wild ride with awesome, like, I just, I actually laughed when it came up. It's just like, after World War III in 2019. And I'm like, damn. They were only off a decade because maybe that's where
Who
we'll be at
knows?
in 2029.
No.
But the whole world of Neo Tokyo is so awesome. And the action, like this is legitimate great action. I feel like animated movies don't get enough credit for making great action movies, for being great action movies. And just the animation, the light, how they use light in this is incredible. And if you loved Chronicle, now go watch Akira, where they figured out where they got the whole entire idea for Chronicle. So enjoy. But those are my recommendations, and that is a wrap on another episode of Welcome to the Wasteland. So thank you all, Rowan, Heath, and Robert, for coming on and talking about Asteroid City.
You're
Thanks for having
welcome.
me, as
Thank you for
usual.
having us.
Thank you for having us.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.